This will not be a solo show. Gov was not able to join us, though. Donnie will be joining us here shortly. I just didn't want to hold you guys any longer. And I figured the sooner I can get going, the more we can review and the more we can get into this week from a strategy standpoint, because it is the season end finale. And although we will carry over for the playoffs, some of the bigger channels, some of the bigger content creators, I guess that would be an advantage that we have, is that we are a smaller production, so we don't have to do as much on the back end. Some people have contracts, they have negotiations, obligations, those type of things. They have other sports involved, like golf, for example, starting up for a lot of the bigger companies. So a lot of times the playoffs get kind of overcasted or dispelled, and we're used to covering kind of that niche sport anyways, as we will cover the UFL. So that is just some off the cuff, I guess, some bulletin board material for you guys as well, to know that we will be covering the playoffs and the UFL and maybe some NBA and UFL. We did bring the NBA best ball to the streets earlier this offseason, so things like that. But until Donnie gets here, we'll let him finish up the spread picks and that kind of thing. He will be joining us here shortly. But I did want to get into this lineup that I got in front of us here on the screen. This was my single entry. We will review the show lineups when Donnie gets here. But I did want to show that even when you have things right, we talk about sometimes when we have things wrong, how it doesn't work out for us. But even when we have things right, it doesn't always yield the best results or the highest, overall results. But I'm still very proud of this lineup. How are we doing, Donnie?
All right. I'm just still loading up a couple things, but week 18, I don't know what exactly you've gotten into.
Well, no, basically, I was just talking about how I played. I was starting to talk about how I got into how I played Drake London. And even though I didn't win a lot of money, even when you are on the right pairing, sometimes that doesn't mean that you're going to climb up the leaderboard. And I just wanted to show this as an example. I thought this lineup was very good. I'm very proud of this lineup. But even then, you don't always get the best results. Like, I think this lineup was very unlucky to get $2. So I just want to point that out, because I don't think enough shows actually point that out. And then I just did some housekeeping off the top to kind of let the people know.
Yeah. I mean, I would say the only miss in this lineup in general was, and can you call something 13% owned a miss, would be Corum. Like, he just didn't do much.
And he broke his forearm, I believe.
Well, he did break his forearm, but that was like halfway through the game. So like he wasn't getting a huge workload, which is okay, whatever, cool.
Right. Which I'm actually glad you're here for, Donnie, because you were raving on that show. People can go back and watch if they have. I mean, I'm assuming that most people that are tuning in live have actually watched our content in the past, but I shouldn't probably do that. You guys can go back and watch. Donnie was very high on Will Shipley, all of this week 18 kind of incentive.
And I heard it from everybody. Which
is why transparently I want to bring it up on the show, is we do play our player pool. Like, that is the cool thing about this show, is like, even when we give each other shit for maybe the wrong player or the player we don't agree with, we still play it. These are our actual player pools. You did have success with Will Shipley in your lineup. He did. I know he didn't smash, but again, that was a process play that you should be proud of.
I mean, he definitely did what I thought. He was Boston Scott. Like, obviously, he didn't have the crazy, game, but 11 points from a guy 4,600, and he was only 3% owned. I thought he'd be much higher than that, but then you guys were talking, how he's not on anyone's radar, and I really didn't understand it.
I still stand by it. Like, we can disagree. That's the fun of it. Like, because I respect you, and that's part of, for me, part of having friendships and part of having sports discussions is being willing to disagree and being willing to see it differently. I agree with Gov, who's not here today, but I agree with Gov when it says, if a guy's coming off a concussion, if you believe in his potential, if you believe in all this future prospecting with him, you wouldn't play him in a meaningless 18 game but they did. So I don't understand.
He didn't get crazy workload, to be fair. He had 14 total touches.
Right.
He caught everything thrown to him. He 4-4 on targets. That's really good. He didn't score the touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
But he basically, outside of the rush attempts, 3 yards per carry isn't great. But, Giants defensive line, they're all right. He did. I'm happy with 10.7 points. Like, that was enough for me.
And I have a lot of reasons not to like the Eagles. One of them is not the running back situation. Like, Gainwell's a capable backup. Saquon had an amazing season. But I don't understand why Shipley hasn't been more involved. And I guess if he was, I would have been more trusting of your confidence. I would have been more on your side because I do believe the talent is there. And I think that's why I didn't trust it, because I'm just like, even if the talent's there, even if he gets the opportunity, will the coach, I don't know what that coaching staff is doing. So it was more of an indictment on the Eagles coaching staff than it was not believing in Will Shipley.
I think the Eagles really do believe in Will Shipley. Like, I think he is going to be the Gainwell replacement for sure.
Yeah. It's
just like, right now you have Kenneth Gainwell. Why would you not use a guy who's just been through it and knows? Like, he's I think Will Shipley's very talented. But even like, it was pretty much the same snap count for Gainwell and Shipley.
We can get over to our show line, but I just wanted to show that we did play a Drake London, and it cashed. Obviously, I think it would be very difficult for it not to cash.
No, my Drake Londons didn't cash.
You had one that didn't cash?
I had a Drake London pairing with what's his name?
Penix?
Penix. And it had Bijan, and I didn't cash, which is almost more impressive than cashing.
Yeah. Well, I think that it's just an important conversation, and that's why I wanted to lead off the top of with it, because I knew it was my personal lineup anyways. You guys didn't have any connection with it. But I think a lot of this gets talked about incentives, and we almost build this concrete idea that we know what week 18 is, and Drake London was the perfect example of that. We thought we knew, it's Tampa Bay heavy, and as long as you go Tampa, you're going to win. And maybe that would have been the case too, but I just think there were still ways to get a lot right, and you could still go wrong. There's still a lot of strategy, no matter what week it is, no matter what is happening. You still have to adjust.
Well, for example, week 18, we knew the Chiefs weren't going to play backup. We're going to play all their backups. They scored no points. Whatever. I did have Justin Watson in my lineup.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't get. You played Justin Watson. You're kind of playing and saying if he gets that home run, awesome, and if he doesn't, then you're probably gonna get a snowflake. Because he's just that deep ball threat guy. He's played 97% of snaps. Kansas City didn't score. He got 1 point the whole game for me. But playing 97% of snaps when you're the deep ball guy, I mean, it was literally for wide receivers, it was Juju, Watson, and Nico. Which I know you played Nico. I don't know what he did. But that was it.
Yeah. I don't remember, so it must have been not important. Whether it was a 0 or like an 8 points, it must not have been important. And
right.
I think that's more valuable to what you're saying.
But I'm not mad that Justin Watson got a snowflake because I knew why I was playing him, for one. And two, he was vindicated with the snap count. I don't care that he didn't do anything because at least he was on the field and he always has the potential to do something when he's out there. He wasn't min-priced, but he might as well have been min-priced at receiver. You're going to have to take a risk somewhere. And week 18, that was my dart throw of the whole week that just completely missed. And it's just like, I don't feel bad about it, but maybe I should have been smarter.
Well, I always find this week very difficult too, because I'm always a forward-thinking person. I will always want to be like, okay, what did we learn this week that we can apply to next week? We can't do any of that for the playoffs. Like, literally, this is the opposite of the playoff. Like, this isn't ending. And so that is also why my expectation, and I wish I could think of a better word, but like almost a depression. Like I wasn't excited for this week at all. Like it was like, okay, I know some of the dots. I'm going to plug in Mike Evans. I'm going to plug in, Baker Mayfield. And I actually plugged in Baker and Mike and did not like it. I ended up playing 100% Mike Evans because of that incentive, because I do think there was incentives that mattered. And then there were some that were being overblown and over talked about. I just wanted to get off of Baker because I wanted that bit of out. I wanted that kind of fire shoot escape if things in the Tampa game went badly.
Yeah, and a player I want to bring up because we kind of in the comments got a little bit flame for it. I mean, it was Gov's take, but Algier, he didn't snowflake. He didn't go crazy.
Yeah,
but he did his job. He did what he was supposed to do. A 0.5% owned guy. Honestly, if you played any Atlanta, really,
yeah,
you did well. Even though they lost, if you played that game in general, 44-38.
I did play a lot of it. That was my biggest surprise. You talked.
I liked that game environment just in general.
Yeah, which I think is why we were able to digest the Tyler Algier thing, because we weren't a big fan of it. And we've been asking people to roast Gov as kind of this joke or this kind, but that was one of his wildest takes. Like I think he knew that Tyler was going to be under 1% owned, and he was, and he did just enough.
He did just enough, and really 52 yards, 17 receiving yards. Could have easily had a touchdown with that much work.
Yeah, with that much work, because he got the work. Like I think Gov was playing him to be different. I think Gov was playing him because it might be a blowout script. It might be a game where he gets goal line touches. None of those things actually happened. The game was super competitive. The game scored like 68 points or like something like that. It was like the opposite of what you would expect for a backup running back to be involved. But yet he was at a higher pace than usual, because I think going into that week he had 3 carries. But this is a perfect example of Donnie of maybe we got too cute. Like it worked, so it's easy to like look at, and it doesn't hurt your eyes to look at. And I think maybe that's why we should today look at it again to say, yes, it worked, but was it actually a smart play?
I still, the reason why we played Algier, I still like it.
Yeah.
I still, looking back on, I played it personally as well. Gov convinced me. All it took was 1 touchdown. That's it.
That's fair.
Same thing with Shipley, to be fair. If he had 1 more touchdown, we'd be saying, oh my God, this is like a must-have.
Hey, you're right. You were saying you were hearing an echo. If the people are hearing an echo, if you're hearing any live echoes, let me know. I'm going to move my mic back a little bit. That might help. I repositioned my mic so it was a little closer than usual, so that might help. Hopefully, I'm not coming in too quiet now, but
that might be volume. It's actually louder now, the echo. But
well, we'll work through the technical issues. No one promised we were a professional show.
No. I just want to bring this up because we're getting ready for all this, but is there any game specifically, like obviously the Chiefs didn't show up. Is there any team that you played that you're just like, this made no sense? Because that's how I felt about the Chiefs. Like looking back on it, why play a team that was with nothing to play for, that was playing a team with everything, literally everything to play for?
Yeah, I mean, I'll show another. I believe we built this team as well. I did not like Michael Carter. It made all the sense in the world. He still got there. 15 points was good. It was almost like Brian Thomas Jr. Like you almost could figure it, like with that workload, with the expectation, Connor being out, for Jacksonville in this example with the Colts, you just expected this game to be a kind of a toss it around game. There were certain plays that I felt like were built in or were excused to be like good enough, but I didn't like them. Like I thought you needed that big explosion week, and that's why I played like a Drake London over, and one of those lineups, for example. This wasn't the show lineup. The show lineup.
Well, that had Nico in it, so I think that's just a good. But 6 points or 7 points almost for a guy who is minimum priced at receiver is pretty solid.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Gov's not here. He was smashing Dobbs. Like that was one of his big stands. So I think like as a unit we did very well. If you took the pieces that we individually liked, if you took Will Shipley and you didn't want to do the Gainwell stuff, and you took Dobbs, and then because I talked about going heavy on a Selkin, and that's why I was okay with going with Algier eventually. But the Carter thing, Donnie, really stuck with me as just a bad play. Like I didn't like that ownership.
I like the Carter play, especially when you're playing Dobbs, because like I actually played it just like this as well. You just have a naked Dobbs and hope at 4K. It doesn't take much. He doesn't have to bring anyone with him. If he does, cool, but I don't need to guess who it is. That's how I felt about it going in. And with Carter coming back, okay, we're saying Dobbs has a good passing day. That probably means that Arizona's up.
Yeah.
Then Carter should get work.
Yeah.
But 40% is a lot to stomach. I mean, that is much higher than I expected.
Yeah.
When you have Shipley, who had 11 points at 3%. Now, obviously, Carter's a better play because he scored more. But I think you could have gotten, Algier had 9 points, obviously less points, but just the ownership wise, it probably would be better to just play those two instead of Carter in theory, just because of the ownership. I don't know if I'd want to.
I think you can always second guess ownership though. Like we can always look back at it.
Well, it's week 18. We don't have the data really.
Yeah.
But we have one comment as well. But like I said, I like week 18. I like having to, because me and you study preseason. Like not study. I don't know if that's the right word, but we know the guys. We watch the UFL. We know these guys end of the roster. We know who's talented and who's not. We can get the guys at the end of a bench and be right about something.
Right.
Getting a random opportunity in December or January.
No, I get what you're saying because we have such a deep wealth of knowledge about football. Like it's kind of our time, our time to shine almost. So like,
we play preseason rosters, literally preseason DFS, because we watch it and we watch the UFL and we see these guys, working their way up.
Right.
We know, more than what the average fan would know on these guys. Yeah, well, I watch bum football, I guess is what you could say. Like
some people watch MAC football, on a Thursday. Me and Donnie would that wasn't really our scene. College is not really your thing, but what you would do is play a lot of Madden. You were a younger generation, you were playing a lot of Madden. So people love to like roster dive, in that game and build franchise and stuff. And so when you have all this knowledge in the back of your head and you can finally use it, like it does add some incentive.
It definitely vindicates like the weird wealth of knowledge I have on bottom of rosters. And it is credited to the terrible Madden games and UFL.
See, I think like even if we were forecasting next week into the playoffs a little bit, in terms of always trying to think forward here, I think next week is almost a complete opposite of this week. And so if you're a very skilled NFL thinker, then you can easily transition and put this one to bed and then get on to next week. Because I think if you were to box score watch or think like, oh, well, I did well in week 18, so let me just roll over the money, I think your strategy has to change completely.
Yeah, see, the only thing that, honestly, when you look at this week and what we saw this past week, we can only say two things, I think. When it comes down to it, Mike Evans is obvious, which we knew this already. Mike Evans will be a huge game plan for the playoffs. Cortland Sutton's going to be a huge part of the game plan coming into the playoffs. So the teams that were fighting to get in the playoffs, they're calling their best plays. They're trying to, get the guys they want involved. So, we could look at Cortland Sutton next week and say, hey, at worst, he's going to be, 6,500 probably going into the week. We know he's a part of the offense. Does that mean the offense works? We'll see, but we'll talk more about that Friday.
Well, I think, even to look at this lineup, I think one thing we can say is the Commanders use Zach Ertz. They'd used him most of the season, and Gov was excited to use him again. I thought the ceiling on him was limited, but the usage would be there. So eventually he went up. Like that's a guy that's easily going to translate to the playoffs. Like you don't need a big splash play. You're not looking for that big Jameson Williams 80-yard touchdown from Zach Ertz.
Well,
But
another thing actually that I just thought of that we can talk about for something we can take into next week. Dallas Goedert played last week. Not a bunch of snaps, but he was in the offense. They had plays designed for him. That means Dallas Goedert is healthy. They were just getting him into the groove of things again. He is ready to play football again. He played, 19% of snaps last week. Not a bunch, but enough to say, hey, he's ready. He's back in the swing. Next week, he's going to be full. I expect full, snap count.
And that's what I mean about watching these reviews with that kind of mindset. It's like, what can I take? And that's a perfect example. They were obviously ramping him up. They were just, kind of like doing a live, what do they call those practices? Like walkthroughs?
Yeah.
Basically just doing a live walkthrough on the field, like get him in there a couple times, get him used to the physicality and then get him out.
And they said they were going to put him on IR. They didn't think his injury was awful, but you might as well have him coming in healthy instead of forcing him to play, a month with an injury and then go into the playoffs with it possibly being significantly worse. That worked out perfectly for them because Grant Calcaterra came in and, he was playing really well this season. Not a huge name you hear a lot, but Calcaterra has significantly improved this year as a player.
And to give some people like a bit of forecast for the playoffs, it's like those are the type of guys you would want to bring up, like a Dallas Goedert. Like I'll bring up a Mike Williams. Like if you're going to take a chance on a dart throw, and it still is a dart throw, that's my point. But at least do it with the upside of like, oh, they're getting snaps, or the team likes them, or they have an identity, they have a role. Like we know Mike Evans hasn't had a big smash week, but he is the red zone guy. He is the guy that they trust with the jump ball. Like play that guy. I don't think you should be chasing the 3K upside guys. Like week 18 was about finding the bottom of the barrel roster guys. I don't think this week you want to do that at all. Even if you wanted to jam in like a Derrick Henry or Lamar Jackson, like there are smart ways to do it.
Another guy, Steelers had a lot to play for last week. They were playing for the division. They were playing for home field advantage. They care about that in Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
Pickens was not really involved in the offense. He was on the field the whole game. I mean, he played 92% of snaps, but he's not a focal point. I mean, it's just somebody I can't stomach playing in a personal lineup at all. I know the talent's there, but he's a risk to be ejected if you get in his head, and he's not involved lately.
Right.
I can't do it.
See, that's my point. If you're in a conservative offense and your price is cheap enough, like a Mike Williams, then you only need like one or two big plays and maybe some luck to get involved. Like I'm saying, Mike Williams could be a good play because he catches one pass for a touchdown. His price would be reflective of that in terms of usage on a playoff slate. If you are playing Pickens, you're playing him with that with that superstar upside. And I'm not saying I'm right or Donnie's right. What we're saying, though, is if you're going to play Pickens, you better play him expecting that superstar outcome.
He's going to be, 6,500, I'd expect. If you are playing Pickens at 6,500 and he only gets 2 targets like it feels like he's been doing lately, that's a big mistake because, Pittsburgh they played their asses off. They called their best plays. They wanted to win the division. And, it didn't matter.
That's what I mean about taking chances on conservative offenses. Like, unless you just think the game script's going to flip and the Steelers are going to get out of that Mike Tomlin, tough-nosed defense, and you want to be completely contrarian because you will be. Like, if you stack that game to score 30 points in, Pittsburgh's favor, then fine, but you better build that skeleton key for that, for that outcome. And I think we both agree that would be the wrong way to do it. But if it works, don't flame us and act like we're telling you it's wrong. We're just
if it turned out that Pickens had 30 points next week and you want to flame me for not playing him, go ahead because I will stand by my take. I swear to God, I will not play George Pickens no matter what in the whole playoffs.
Yeah.
Even if they're in the Super Bowl, George Pickens will not make my lineup.
Well, that's what all I'm saying is like even in this lineup, like playing Revigio from the Kansas City Chiefs, that might have been too cute for me. I just looked at he got 6 points, but I told you in the beginning I didn't even know how many points he got because it didn't matter. It wasn't bad, it wasn't good, it was just somewhere in the middle. And I think that's your point with Pickens. It's like there are guys where you're like, I'm playing you because you offer this, or I'm playing you because I hope this. And I think when you play for a hope, that's when you're playing wrong. Like if you
I can't play for hope. That's
right.
that's a Kyle Pitts argument. If you're still throwing Kyle Pitts in your lineups, you're playing for the hope of the talent we saw 3 years ago. You're getting a little cute. Now his price is kind of leveled out where it's, if you want to take a shot on him 1 week, it makes more sense. But like the idea of playing somebody for a hope and having them at this price that, of course their potential, they could easily reach that price every week, but they're just realistically not going to get there. And when they do, cool, awesome. But more than not, you're going to regret playing it.
Right. Like, if you want to play for the highlight upside of Pickens, like maybe attack the sports, the book, or different things like that. Like, I don't want to get stuck just on Pickens here, but that was the perfect example. Like, I think there was ways to fade Mike Evans, but I don't think there was ways to fade the whole Tampa Bay offense, for example.
Yes.
Because Tampa had to win. Like, I do think there's ways to get too cute for that to be just another example of Week 18. Like, sure, you want to play Mike Evans, okay, don't play Mike Evans, but play him with, McMillan and Baker and then Bucky Irving. Like you could win with that. But don't play the game completely. Don't start playing like Spencer Rattler because you want to be, like that's where you get in a mistake.
Well, the single entry daily dollar, I don't know if you have it. I have it up on my screen if you want to show it. The lineup that won, because I just have to pull it up. I'm pulling it up now. So the lineup that won here, it probably had the worst play of the week. And it's not that it was a bad play, it's just he got hurt. Almost a 12% owned Garendo had 5 yards. That's it.
Right.
And this is this lineup won $1,000. Everything else was right. Like literally everything else besides Ertz flamed. Even Quentin Johnston, which I didn't. This is the first time I'm seeing that stat line. Oh my god!
Yeah, the Chargers took on a Dan Campbell like approach where they were like, "We're going to play our guys. We're going to keep them lathered up."
Well, the Chargers had something to play for still.
Right,
man.
But I mean, like the way Harbaugh went about it, he literally called that game like it was a very competitive. Like he didn't care it was Week 18. And I think you had to know those benchmark notes. Like that's where if you did the research, maybe you should have spent less time on the Eagles and more time on the Chargers. But that kind of stuff happens in Week 18. Like I'm okay losing to stuff like that.
Yeah, no, and this lineup, like he was pretty clear.
He deserved it.
He played pretty much everything that somebody had something to play for.
Yeah.
Okay, besides the Jets, yeah, they didn't have anything to play for. But you're playing Tyler Huntley. I forget. You're playing Huntley is the point. Makes sense to play him. Garendo and Pearsall. Everyone else is playing Dobbs because of that price. So you're getting some of the Dobbs stuff with Pearsall and Garendo.
Yeah.
If it's a running script and not a passing script, which it might have been if Garendo doesn't get hurt, obviously London smashes. Penix, good job. Bijan, Penix, Bijan, London doesn't surprise me. Like I played all these guys personally as well. But
I think we were actually one of the biggest shows on the Falcons. Like even Gov went as low as playing Algier, which we talked about. I don't know why this game was so under-owned because everyone who was on the Panthers most of the late part of the season.
Right, the Panthers have been so good in the late part of the season in pushing teams.
Right, as a value add, whether it be Chuba Hubbard at a time or Coker at a time, or even Sanders was mid-price there for a couple of weeks in the early.
Well, Sanders got a good amount of work this last game too, and he was a cheap price. Like there was so much value in this game. Penix is so cheap, and he has the potential of doing that kind of, the rush touchdown.
They literally benched a Pro Bowl, player and Kirk Cousins for Penix.
Even Kirk was playing bad, and I think they made the right decision to bench him. Maybe they waited a little too long out of respect for what he has been.
Right.
But even Kirk at the start of the year was slinging it to begin the year.
Right.
And, you had hiccups here and there, but Kirk has always had hiccups. You just think he's going to get over it. He didn't this year. Whatever. So you go to Penix, and Penix is very talented. You're a top 10 pick for a reason. He really impressed this past week. But the Falcons' offense are just fun. There's so much talent on this Falcons team.
Yeah. And I was shocked by Donnie because we all liked him right on this show. And then some of my internal bubbles on my DFS, podcast and Discord channels, a lot of them are like hardcore Falcons fans and stuff like that. So like a lot of my internal bubble this week, or external bubble rather, was just all about how this game was good. I'm like, yeah, they're pumping me up. And then I flip over the cards and he's like 4% owned. And I'm like, wow, that surprises me. But then if I told you that I was going to get 43 points from him the moment that game started, like I was going to get, no, sorry, not from him, but I was going to get 28 points from him and 43 points from London, you would have thought I would have won more than $2. So even then, you can get unlucky with an Isaac Garendo, with a blood quorum, injury and that kind of stuff. You have to be willing to, it is a gamble.
By the way, this is insane. You're going to tell me Drake London only caught about half his targets and he still had 43 points? There was potential for him to score 60? That's crazy.
Speaking of potential, do you think there'll ever be a chance where him and St. Brown play together? They play together in Cali in college. They love each other. Apparently, they want to make it happen. Talk about like pairings and player empowerment movements and stuff like that. That would just be a crazy out there theory thinking about fantasy football.
I don't like to speculate on people's careers nowadays, especially like how the player movement is.
It's just funny because you don't like to do it, but then we speculate on fantasy.
I know, but that's like weekly stuff.
Yeah.
But like, I don't like to speculate multiple years into the future. I just like to enjoy football as it is in the moment.
And I think that's honestly, though, to get back to week 18, I think that's what I did. I'm like, you know what? I don't always like all this incentive. I don't like how the sports books press it up. I don't like how it becomes the talking point of the whole week. But once football started, it was still football. It was still fun to watch, Johnny.
Yeah, there was a lot of bad games this week, I'd say. But Washington, they were playing for something. They had a close game. Teams that mattered were in close games. Atlanta was playing for something. In the end, it wouldn't have mattered even if they won. That was close. Tampa Bay was close. Chargers was close for a while. They had trouble pulling away from the Raiders. Mm-hmm. Even the boring games of Patriots and Bills, which literally both teams wanted to lose, was a close game. It was bad football, sure, but it was at least a close game.
Now, I talked a bit off the top of this show, Don, how we're gonna keep producing content for the playoffs. We're not afraid. Like a lot of bigger channels, they have a bigger production budget. They have other sports they want to cover. We're gonna cover the UFL and the playoffs. So I don't know if we need to really go on too much longer with this review. In fairness, we do want Gov to watch. Hopefully, he's proud of this and maybe he tunes in. Is there anything that you want to give the people you mentioned the Steelers? Anything else you want to mention before we give them our Saturday show or Friday show? We haven't locked it in yet.
The big thing is for me, we closing out the regular season. Obviously, most people have had their favorite team eliminated, especially because a lot of the big market teams have been eliminated. Just I'm a Patriots fan. I enjoyed the hell out of this season. It didn't end well. They did not win as much as I wanted them to. And a lot of the games were ugly. But I enjoyed the ride. And that's what this is about. At the end of the day, sports, we're supposed to be having fun with it. Have fun with it. Continue to have fun with everyone. Try not to make your takes too harsh and, beat on a dead horse or whatever. But just enjoy it. Enjoy it for what it is.
I know we talk a lot about DraftKings. I'll kind of piggyback off that idea. If you want to just do an office pool for the playoff predictions, if you want to do it with your mom or your coworker who's not so much into football, and like you want to have other fun ways to get involved with, like squares or like fun little prop bets you'll see in the Super Bowl, like all that stuff can be fun. Just make sure you're doing so with a smart bankroll and you're allocating the money where you want it to go for the reasons that you want it to go. Like I know a lot of people this week, for example, were talking like, oh, they wanted the main slate because there's slates for all games, Donnie, and we'll get into like what one we want to cover and different strategies. But there's lineups where you can build for Monday. There's lineups that you can just build for Saturday. I think whatever you decide, don't get carried away with the grand prizes on Saturday, so I have to play it. Play whatever lineup or whatever structure, even like showdown that you want to play. Like have fun with it. Don't get out of control. You talk a lot about in the beginning of the year bankroll management. I just want to mention that as we wrap up the end of the season, like there's still the playoffs, there's still UFL. Golf just started, so there's other ways to spend your money. Don't blow it thinking like you got to chase your losses in the NFL.
Well, that's a good point. Chase your losses. Don't do that, obviously. And, if you had a profitable season, loathe those wins. Be happy about it.
Yeah.
Don't put it all in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, exactly.
Just be smart. And if you have the money to blow and you just want to put it in, I guess you can. But I doubt you listen to us if you can. I guess if you have that money, you're probably not listening to us.
But in all seriousness, you can though, and that's where you have to apply a strategy. For me, like I'm not saying you have to play like me. I'm just giving you an option of because the whole point of starting this show was like I'm going to have this conversation with Donnie anyways. Let's just broadcast it to show people. Real guys do have a water cooler discussion, and that's what this show was. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it this season. Hopefully you continue to enjoy it. And even if you want to razz us in the comments, we're just three guys. You can make fun of my hair. I won't take it too personal. It doesn't matter to me that much. With that being said, though, Don, I think I'm wrapped up here. You good to go?
I'm good. Yeah. Enjoy the playoffs if your team's still alive.
And even if you're not, like, just find a way to enjoy it, either way. Even if it's just buying a snack from your winnings this season, it's all good. Take care, guys. Good night.